Hi, everybody. Welcome to Shameless Facebook Friday Live. I'm Dr. Patti Ashley, and I'm so excited to be here with my special guest today. I'm starting off my series of Shameless Facebook Friday Live for 6 weeks over the next couple months, talking to people about shame and really authenticity, because I call myself an authenticity architect because I've been studying shame for so long. And every time I look at what I don't want, I always want to know what I do want. So authenticity is what we want. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And I'm so excited to introduce my guest. She is a singer-songwriter, but much more than that, I've discovered over the past few years when I've had the delight of getting to know her a little bit off from back watching her on the stage. Big heart, big brain, smart, loving, sweet, incredible, wonderful, Rebecca Folsom.
Thank you. Thank you, Patti. What a pleasure to be here. I was super excited about it all morning.
I'm excited too. Thanks so much for doing this with me. It's been really fun getting to know you a little bit more. And, I followed you around for years and would listen to your music, but knowing your heart and your work, I thought it would be great to find out a little bit more about you today. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Rebecca Folsom? Because I know you've got quite a lot of things that you do in your life.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm thinking with that question, it's sort of like, well, let me check in. Who's Rebecca Folsom like right now? The many hats and the many personas, and then the essence underneath, and all the pieces of each of us. I always wanted to write a song. I haven't done it yet. I'll be very happy when I write it, because I wanted to write it for about 20 years. A song about scratching the surface, and that we scratch the surface on anyone's life. And there's so much underneath. There's all the stories and the traumas and the beauties and the successes, and, the whole spectrum, of somebody. So I'm fascinated by that, actually, and scratching the surface. And, one of those things about like cocktail parties, I never really liked small talk, and I would be like, let's just get into it. Like, what's your learning edge? What's kicking your booty right now, as far as what you're having to evolve, into. Like, that interests me quite a bit. And
no wonder I love you so much, because I'm
yes. Same. So, the sort of details, if you were to put some labels, it's like, I'm a nationally touring, well, not touring now, singer-songwriter. And so that's a whole like identity that's been just like put on the shelf for a while.
Yeah.
And songwriter, I've got a new project I'm working on right now. Super excited about that. And I teach. I've been teaching for 25 years. A piece for me, I was actually singing early on. Like, I was writing my own music and even competing. It was like what was it called? Something for the Stars. Stars of Tomorrow and I was like 13 years old and already out there playing and competing, and then some major trauma happened in my life, and I stopped singing altogether. I stopped my whole ear, just closed up, and that was part of the shame piece. And then about years later, so it would have been about 14 years later, I finally came back into my voice, and through a pretty cathartic experience also, that kind of shattered that silence, shattered that muting of myself and my voice. And then it took about 2 years for me to rediscover my voice and really come into full expression. And ever since then, I love helping other people open their voices, because I'm like, you can do it. I did it. It's like, I know what it is to be totally shut down and then to experience vocal freedom. Mm-hmm. So, what we're talking about really is the shame piece, and the shame piece of, what is it that we hide and we shut down and we don't let ourselves really happen be alive. And, I love going in and mining those places that are stuck and condensed and dark, and then turning those into fuel for us to fly in our lives and with our dreams.
Yeah. And you literally were flying this year in your trapeze event. You had wings on.
Oh, yeah, that was so fun. Yeah, those that don't know, the frequent flyers in Boulder, Colorado are just an incredible dance troupe that dance in the sky. They dance on trapezes and cloths, and I've always been like really amazed at what they do. And Nancy Smith who is the brainchild of that in Boulder. It's a beautiful thing. And anyway, I got to be part of a show, and they choreographed their dancing to my songs, and they're songs that are going on the new album. And one of them, I got to get up in a trapeze. And it's so funny because when she was like, "Oh, okay, we'll get you in a trapeze," basically they put me on a little moon that my feet were on the ground and I was to play, and I was like, no, I want to get up there. I want to be up in a trapeze like you guys. And it took some training. It took them really helping me to get up there, and it took risk, and I think that, again, that's another place around shame, that there's always this portal when we're in that transformation from shame to aliveness, that it's fear. There's always unknown and fear. Something that happened at some point closed that door. And so what is it that, it's another piece of what I love about teaching vocal freedom is when people come up to those portals and those apashetas, you can feel it. It's like, oh, they're about there. They're about to bust through. And helping people, like holding their hand through those risky moments, to leap and fly. So, I'm all for that. I just, just recently I put on somebody else's Facebook, because I was inspired by them. Susie Batiste, I'm inspired by her regularly. And I said, turbo evolving. And I'm really interested in turbo evolution.
Wow. That sounds like, you mean like fast?
Yeah, and like charged, like all in, this thing like, I'm all in. I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to make mistakes. I'm willing to risk. I mean, again, another coming back to shame. One piece that I feel like I work with a lot in my work and in my own process, of getting out in the world and being in front of audiences, is that we're trained over time how to not do things, that sometimes they're huge traumas, sometimes they're massive, there's sexual abuse, or there's abuse on some level, or neglect, or someone beloved dies, I mean, there are, this, you've written, deep work on all that. Mm-hmm. So there's the big traumas, and there's the little traumas too. These are the ones that are the first grade in the schoolyard, and the kids are poking you with pins because you had the audacity to date someone in sixth grade, or whatever, whatever the thing is. But you learn, and what I call it is the box of cool. And you learn how to be cool, and you learn how to, like, don't be too loud, don't be too soft, don't be, all these different things. Don't shine too brightly. So kind of stay in this middle vanilla place, and then you're safe. And that's sort of this box of cool. Mm-hmm. And, to really be alive is to get out of that box.
Yeah. And your work as an artist, I'm looking at your beautiful paintings behind you. That's another piece of what you do. It's so incredible that you help people do that, to get out of the box, to turbo thrive, or whatever it was you said.
Turbo evolve.
And I meant to say earlier a couple things. One is, I'm hoping my chat's working. So if you're here, let us know. I was trying not to look rude, and I typed, let you hear. You are. I wasn't paying attention, but let us know you're here. I don't know if this platform will actually let us see your chats. I'm hoping it will. So say hello. If you have questions, that's great. And if not, I'm sorry. It's just, I'm I have shame around my technology. But we're here talking, and this is working, and this is great. Brene Brown defines shame as the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing we are flawed and unworthy of love and belonging. And she also says that everybody has it. No one wants to talk about it, and not talking about it makes it worse. So
True that.
I feel like that feeling of feeling we're flawed and unworthy of love and belonging is really connected to what you were saying around the stories that we make up, in the schoolyard when somebody says something. And that's all what my shame research has been about, which has been super cool to discover that it's actually biological. That we hold it in our neurobiology and our nervous system, and our right brain doesn't develop adequately because we just don't have, we have a lot of learning to do, I think, as humans. I always say we're the only species that has to research itself to understand how to get along with each other, because animals seem to do it a lot better than we do. We made a lot of mistakes in terms of helping people develop that sense of love and belonging, because I know most of the people that come into my office, well, all the people pretty much that come into my office can't say that I'm worthy of love and belonging. So I really feel like that's a lot of your work. It's really helping people do that and helping them do it through, I know I signed up for your course thinking I was going to sign up to maybe work on this, which is my work, which is teaching and training and talking. And I was like, ooh, but everybody's singing. I want to sing.
Oh,
so
dang.
you really helped me sing in a way that I didn't ever feel I could do, because when I was a kid, I was told not to sing because I was flat. So, those stories. So I so appreciate how you help people do that. And I've actually noticed it firsthand. Had the wonderful experience of working with you. So you work with body intelligence and Katie Hendricks' work, correct? Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Katie Hendricks is one of my mentors over the years. Yeah. I've been teaching 26 years now, coaching vocal and performance and expression. And Katie Hendricks just has such incredible stuff, and Gay Hendricks, they really, their stuff is so merged on what they're doing. She was a therapist and a dance therapist and movement therapist. So definitely somatically oriented. And when I signed up to be a vocal teacher, and it was almost just like the universe kind of just said, you are going to be doing this. And I just thought, well, we work with voice. But what I learned pretty quickly was this is the instrument, the whole being is the instrument. So the link of emotions, mind, body, all of it come into play when we get up to perform, we get up to express. And so it became fascinating. It's like, oh, somebody would shift something vocally, and then it would play out in their lives, and it would play out in their relationships. And the other thing is like, oh, this is coming up in my relationship. So let's actually take a look at what you're doing in your body that's creating that. So the body intelligence of regularly checking in, like, oh, what am I experiencing right now? What's actually going on? So there's so many directions we could go, way more than an hour podcast, in that. One, I would say, is the gift and the tool of the pause and taking this leap back here into oneself and checking in and going, wow, what's going on for me? Like, what am I literally experiencing? I'm feeling really buoyant, I'm feeling happy to be here with you. I'm feeling excited to share this information and to stream with the world. And it's like, oh, I'm having that experience, how cool, and sometimes that experience when I check in with myself isn't that, sometimes it's like, oh, I'm feeling really sad this morning, I'm feeling really, oh, what's that? Or, oh, I'm really scared that thing I did was wrong. I just like that relationship and, what's happening. And that, just tuning into what I'm feeling, and letting that be the 5 simple feelings, of sad, angry, scared, sexual, and happy. And so just going, oh yeah, okay, that's my primary color, what's going on. Yeah. So much gets shifted in just that move, that awareness of that's how I'm operating. One of the best ones is really getting like, oh, I'm scared. Because as humans, we get scared a lot. We don't want to admit it because then we get very scared. It's that sort of shame thing. Like we're not supposed to feel scared. We're supposed to be brave. We're supposed to be happy and all these different things. And yet we're wired with our glands and our history to get frightened, to survive. So I believe part of our turbo evolving at this point is moving through that fear, befriending that animal fear and evolving into creative choices with it, almost like it's a little dog that follows you around or a big dog, that it's like, there's my buddy again, there's fear. Yeah. And especially if you're moving out of this sort of box of cool, you're going to be taking more risks, and there's going to be way more unknown. That the authenticity that shows up is we discover as it happens. So if I'm just checking in with myself and going, oh, I'm experiencing that, it's like I didn't plan any of that. Like it's happening there. It's unknown to me until it's really, then it's past. Then there's the next thing, that's happening. So that piece of dropping into the unknown is a big piece of authenticity too. And the other part of body intelligence is beyond feelings, is to just literally go, oh, I'm feeling buoyant, or wow, I'm feeling really heavy, or gee, I'm feeling jittery and kind of or pokey, like just what is sort of you start to get your repertoire of understanding the subtleties of what's going on in your body. And our body then is our compass, and it tells us, oh, then we can make choice in like, what's the next move I want to do. And, in performing, what's really cool is you tune in like that, and then you sing and express from there. You don't try and correct yourself. It's not sort of like, oh, I'm kind of jittery, and it's like, I got to fix this so I can perform. And it's like, no, I'm jittery. Yeah. So that gets to, I noticed as we just went into this podcast that I'm kind of fidgety, I'm sort of like, I keep moving around, in different ways. And at first I had this moment of like, hey, sit still, it's like, and then I thought, no, I'm just feel like moving, like that.
We also had you come in like a ghost. We had some weird black and white thing happen.
Yes. So we could do that. I could actually play the whole program when you really get into the depths of shame. So, yeah. So anyway, that's a lot of information, but embodied, body intelligence is like, to me, it's the Ferrari of compasses. And particularly right now, if we are locating and compassing off of externals right now, it's so crazy. There's, it's not business as usual. So when we come here for the compass, and then, now this is what I'm experiencing. Now this is the choice. This is what I want to do next. How I want to speak, behave, leave, stay.
Well, and that was one of the things that really struck me when I was working with you, because I was writing my book and getting all this information about the body memory of shame. And it was so aligned with what you do. And I always say we can't change shame from the neck up. We've got to get into the body memory. We've got to feel it. And back to, we're the only species that has to research itself to understand how to get along. This idea of feeling, what are we feeling, was cut off in the old parenting practices of do as I say, not as I do. You should be ashamed of yourself. And so that's how we develop with this disconnect. It's ruptures in the interpersonal bridge to ourself and other people from a lot of these old practices. So it was super cool when, I realized that this is how you work and this is what you do with your vocal freedom and how important that is. And then there's also the element of singing. So Stephen Porges, who came up with polyvagal theory,
wow,
that prosody is the most effective form of sensory healing. So because again, we have to heal all of our sensory experiences of shame, not just our cognitive awareness of it, but sound and prosody, which is the rhythm behind the sound. and the vibration is so healing. So, I mean, you do it all. You put it all, you just is all like,
Yeah, in a way, it does it all. Like singing and speaking, does it all. And, for me, I just feel like, oh, I'm somebody who's been through the portal of, certainly the big time. And then many, many times after, as I take risks and my shame arises. And so I can help people walk through the portal. Like that's the singing itself and someone's own individual movement with that is literally what does it. I just goosebumped.
so
It's like,
yeah. And I keep thinking as you're talking about what it's like for musicians right now. I watched the big barn dance last night on my TV. I usually go down to Taos every weekend, and luckily they're doing it online this year. But it's such a healing experience for people to come together, and for musicians to not have the opportunity to have your concerts and your performances. There must be a lot of fear in that for I'm not you, because, well, maybe you have some of it, but I guess what I'm asking you is, how do you, as a musician, and your other musician friends, deal with the shame? I mean, talk about the shame of, and the fear together with not having our performances, not having our lifestyle, not the way it was, and have to adapt to the online and not have, you know what I mean? I mean, the question is fear and shame in what it must be like these
in the changes and everything. Yeah. I mean, I think everybody is going through their own journey with this. I mean, there's just so many different scenarios that people are going through. And, again, it's like, well, how do we wake up in the morning? Like what's our mind frame? What's coming up for us? What kind of happened? And, I think for me, it's interesting because, what I call this is the grand pause, at least the beginning part of this, of COVID. And it was like a timeout and a pattern interrupt. And for me, pattern interrupt is a really good thing. Like I feel that pattern interrupt then opens up to new possibilities. And if something is happening and it's a pattern interrupt, then I trust that it's for our good, or for my good, that because it's happening, this is like the grand evolution that's happening is in my favor. It's in your favor, So if it's happening, there's something in it to be mined, again. And so, I mean, there's a lot of feelings that come up, I mean, there are days that I'm just like, whoa, uh-oh, the whole fall canceled, like I thought maybe that would be there for me. And, there's that. And there's also the side of, I really have been thriving in being home. I'm normally a touring artist, so I'm normally on the road 2 weeks out of the month. And I love my husband, and I love my house. And I've been really luxuriating in being home and not being so active. I've been more internal and nourishing. And I needed that on a deep level. So I feel like the change brought that for me, and definitely I've had moments, yesterday, I think I called a friend for support, and I was just like, man, I don't know what it is, but I am just scared today, like everything. And she said, well, write them all down. And so I went and I wrote all my fears down, and it was like, yeah, that they're real. They're not just crazy, it was, and then there was a sense of peace. I felt like, okay, I kind of got that out of my system. They were sort of going round and round, like, I got to track this. And it was like, wow, I really can't do a lot about that. I think there's another piece for me too. In the pandemic, I came into the pandemic, and my husband was just coming off of having cancer. And so we were in our, oh gosh, his like 6 month, 9 month, how's he doing thing after a big surgery, and, big time. And there's a lot of letting go that happens in that. For me, there was a lot of letting go, and for him, big time. Yeah. And then my sister got cancer, and my sister was in active dying in the beginning of the pandemic. So she passed, God, she passed, when did she pass? End of April. So it put things into perspective for me as far as let go. It's like, okay, I may have to change careers. I may have to, who knows, there's going to be some adaptation. We may have to really tighten our belts. We might, who knows? I'm going to still just keep flowing with like it's working and keep my vibe and my resonance open, without contracting so much around that. And there was this piece of like, and we're not dying, like to me, that's the ultimate let go.
Yeah.
And, yeah, and the intensity and depth of what happened with my sister, so, I think everybody came into this in a different way. Some people were just releasing albums and heading out on tour, and it's like, that had to be just like really hard, all the investment, into it. And then you put on the brakes.
Mhm.
So, again, I just think it's person by person and checking in, with themselves.
Yeah, and I think that's important, and I really appreciate your perspective, because we have another guest with us that just crawled up into my lap, and she says hello.
Oh, hi.
She's been awful close lately, I think because the weather changed. She wants to be in my lap.
Oh, she wants to be all warm and
So if I looked kind of weird doing this, why.
there she is.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you spoke to that, because I think that's important. I always say all feelings are okay, but all behavior isn't. And so the idea of being with our feelings, I think a lot of people don't want to feel the uncomfortable feelings because they think they're going to drown and die and never get out of them.
Yeah.
And really we move through them. And, that's the grace of grief that I've learned, is if you allow yourself to really, really feel the sorrow, you actually get to the other side.
Yeah.
And I think with what's going on now in the music industry, I love music. You know how much I love, going to concerts and singing and dancing, and it is my therapy. And so I'm missing that myself, grieving the loss of especially, the NIWAC concerts. But on your end to have to go through the, what I've heard people call the Corona coaster, the ups and downs.
Sure. Yeah.
It feels like, because of how much you've embraced the authentic self, you're able to know the bigger, the jewels that possibly
arrive.
Yeah.
And a really good point there. Again, that body intelligence of coming back to oneself, that's actually the navigation tool, and like what you were talking about, when, to move through a feeling is to know you're having a feeling, and rather than just sort of operating out of it or spinning, on it. And for me, it's like when I become conscious of it, then it's like, oh, I can actually do something with it. I can either express the feeling, go deeper into it, even go deeper in, like, whoa, what does that really feel like? Notice my resistance, be with resistance. I had a big one come up recently. I've been doing some really deep work for myself around healing an old trauma, an old wound. And it came up around really wanting to forgive some people that I've held a grudge, that I've held, and even that, we're not supposed to hold grudges, right? We're supposed to just be forgiving. And, whoa, I have held this grudge for like 42 years, and yeah. And I really want to move it. I really want to release the energy that I've held into that for my creative process. I want bigger wings, I want to go some bigger places. And with it, I really have been doing a lot of like writing and praying and, various different ways of being willing, getting feedback and being willing. And what I really came to was like, wow, if I forgive, like I'll have to really admit that this happened, like that, and admit into my whole body that it's over, that it never will be resolved, that yes, this did happen in my young adulthood. And with it was like, okay, then I'm ready to feel those feelings. I'm ready to feel the sadness that, yes, this will never resolve. And it's like, okay, and because I want to loosen it up. And, and I was amazed actually that the feeling of sadness and grief wasn't that big. Like my resistance was way bigger than what the feeling was.
Mhm.
And it came and went for a few days. And then the miracle happened. And then this whole process happened around going back to my childhood home, which was part of the trauma that I was basically kicked out young, that the whole thing fell apart and I wasn't allowed back. Um, and I, and moved into homelessness and some real trauma, around it.
Huh.
And because of this documentary that I'm doing around my new project, he wanted to get footage at my old house. And I had never gotten out. I had driven by slowly and I was hiding when I drove by. Like I didn't want him to see me. There was all this feeling of like, I got kicked out, no trespassing. I'm not allowed. What you were talking about, the basics of shame.
Right.
And instead this time I got out with a film crew, oh, it was so visible. And what happened through that visibility, and I think visibility is a huge piece of unlocking shame. It's why I love performance, because we're spotlighting, we're putting you up there, and that stuff rises. It's cathartic to get it out and moving. And so we're doing the film, and then a neighbor comes out, and I said, God, I'd love to be able to walk down the driveway. And she goes, you just do it. Just tell him Stephanie said yes. And so we bravely go up the driveway, and this other guy comes out. What are you doing here? And then he softens, and he's like, well, here's the phone number of the guy who lives there. And we end up going, and in the middle of a pandemic, I mean, the miracle of this, he invites us into my old home.
Wow.
And it was, I literally was breathing my spirit back from that space. It was like, it was so massively healing for me. Yeah. And it was the willingness to feel the feelings, to forgive, forgive was first. And then it was like, oh, I don't want to forgive because that means I got to feel. And then I felt, and this happened within days of that, that I got to go back. We got it all on the documentary. It's all in the Sanctuary documentary. It's part of the Homeless song that is part of that. So, and truly I feel changed. I feel like I touched the walls. I saw how small it was. I had made it so grand, Yeah. And literally I was doing recapitulation, a technique I learned from a Lakota Sioux teacher, Brooke Medicine Eagle, many years ago when I studied with her. And I was breathing myself back from that place because I had left myself there.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
yeah, massive.
Wow.
So
That's incredible. What a great story, because it just combines all the body memories and the experiences and the feeling and the forgiveness and wow, that's really powerful, because I was going to ask you to talk about Sanctuary next. And so that might be a good lead in, but I didn't know that you had all of this as you're working on this incredible album, which I want you to share with everybody, because again, back to how much heart you have and how much you really want to do good in the world. It's so touching what you've done with this album. And again, I know you were going to do the big CD release party too, when you were talking earlier about some of the getting ready to release.
That was supposed to happen, in the summer, and then it was supposed to happen in the fall. And and now I'm dreaming into like, okay, what is the adaptation, of this release? I mean, we're now looking at time-wise, because we got stopped in the recording studio, so it was like on pause. It looks like we'll release probably February of 2021. So we'll see, where things are at that point. And and looking into what is the release? I don't know that yet.
Well, tell us more about it, because what fascinates me is all the different places you went in order to, I don't know, you talk about it, because it's incredible. So I'm just going to let you take it.
Thank you. It's called Sanctuary. And it's the whole idea of the myth of separation, that we're caught in this trance, that we're separate somehow. And then the devastating results that have happened due to our separation, due to operating like we're separate. So what I did is allied with individual sort of communities and groups that are marginalized, that are sort of kept out. As I developed in the process, what I really came up with is undervoiced. So they're undervoiced communities.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went in and did workshops, open your voice workshops with these communities, and
Incredible.
allegiance with nonprofits that are already doing really beautiful work in those areas.
Yeah.
So, as an example, one is I worked with refugees and worked with IRC, International Rescue Committee, and Folk Alliance International. So the three of us collaborated, Sanctuary, Folk Alliance International, and IRC, and then went in and did workshops with teens that were within a year or so, maybe two, of coming out of war-torn countries and had come here for refuge. And that was amazing. I mean, just wow, these kids and, how they started in the workshops, literally.
Yeah.
That, and there's the whole language barrier. It's like, most of them do not speak much English and they don't feel confident about it, to really, I couldn't keep them off the mic at the end. I mean, they were singing their songs. They were showing their dances. They're singing in Swahili, singing in Arabic. It was so rich and so moving. Like I'm goosebumping all over.
Yeah.
It's an incredible experience. And then they were writing their stories and sharing their stories. So, I think another way of bringing to the light, our stories that have shame or have trauma in them, and in the writing process. So, yeah, I mean, so that's one example. Then we worked with the Boulder homeless shelter of Boulder, and women's empowerment. We have an environment song. So we're working with environmental groups, and because, the amazing separation that we've been living out with the earth, is obviously creating huge consequences. So writing these songs that are just like, wow, with other people and these experiences, it's so much bigger than me. And that's super exciting to me. And so we're about 2/3 of the way done, half to 2/3 of the way done recording. We've got a documentary of 5 songs that, stories behind the songs. And we're going for a Grammy. So what we've done now is we're releasing one song, just the single Sanctuary, that was recorded in this renovated church with a whole Dallas choir, and these Grammy winning artists. And, I mean, it's such incredible talent. So we're releasing that, and that single we're putting up for Grammy. It's up for Grammy consideration now. So if any of you are Grammy voters, it's like I'm listening. So I'd love to hear your music. You can send it to me, my website, and I'd love for you to listen to my song and consider it. So that, and then we'll release the album next year, and then the mission is to go very mainstream. It's to take these undervoiced messages, like from their perspective, or the perspective of both of us meeting, and then the song.
Yeah. Oh, it's incredible. I mean, it's not just an album. It's healing the world intention behind the album. And
that's the mission is to inspire individual hearts, one heart at a time, to open, take action, to open in consciousness, open in choice, and to move into love, and I think that's, I mean, you've probably seen this in your scientific studies too, that when we shift out of the fear chemicals and the fear stimulation, then we move into the love chemicals.
Yeah.
And, that's like where I want to spend the majority of my time. I want to, and I spend a lot of time in fear, I mean, it happens. And to be with that and make shift moves, like, to befriend, little shaky me, and to be like, okay, when I walked up to that old house of mine, woo, I mean, I had to do everything not to disassociate. It was, I even asked my cameraman, I was like, could you walk with me? Cause I'm just so scared. Like I'm just walking through a boundary that had been created, and I had then kept created, through the years. And to walk through that boundary, I was very scared, you know.
Well, I always think for myself, when I have a hard time with forgiveness, it's usually because I'm trying to protect myself from not being hurt again. And because that body again holds that memory. So that's what I'm hearing when I listen to your story, is the protection of that was painful, that trauma, that was hard. And in order to protect myself, I had to keep it, like the resistance that you were saying. So forgiveness to me is such a, it was beautiful how you described that, because it's a strange thing. I believe that forgiveness really frees us up. And yet, if we don't give ourselves permission to have the feelings that we're feeling first,
it's tap in with ourselves authentically.
It's like gratitude. I love gratitude practice, but I was raised Catholic and I was told to be grateful all the time. And I was never allowed to feel grief or sadness, because you just don't do that.
Right.
And so I'm not going to be grateful because I'm sad and nobody wants to pay attention. So it's that paradox of both and that's what I was hearing you describe. It's like I was willing to face the feelings and know that the forgiveness, there's something for me in that. And
and you know, truthfully, it's like I've had the whole experience, and I did grow in compassion. I mean, I grew in compassion for the players, you know, who I, you know, blamed. And I grew in compassion, but I haven't fully forgiven yet. You know, I'm still in that dialogue, and it's like, you know, I'd love to just be done. I'd love to be in forgiveness, and you know, being with like, well, here I am. You know, it's loosening, it's opening. I mean, miracles are happening. So it's happening. Maybe it's not done. You know?
Well, we're always evolving. I mean, I think that's the other thing, you know, it's a journey. It's not a destination in my version, because it's like, you know, so many times we have the promised land syndrome, you know, I'm going to get there and it's going to be done and my life is good. But I think there's always something in life. And that's part of the joy of the journey, is learning how to be in whatever shows up, like we are right now in the pandemic. So I was going to say something else, but I forgot. But I keep thinking I would love for you to play us a song if you have time for that.
I would love to do that.
Yeah.
You know, I think what I'll do is I'll play the single that I just released. And the thing you got to keep in you know, anybody listening has to keep in mind is this is it in its very, very spare form. You know, we ended up putting like a choir and all these vocals in the band, and you know, it's very ecstatic, you know, where it ends up going. Let me see.
It's going to do harmony with you here. My cat's going to do some harmony with you here.
Awesome. Hey, so let me know if this sounds all right. I'm adding this to the mix.
I'm going to hide myself, and so you can have full screen here.
Okay. And how does it sound as far as the vocal? Is it okay?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. So this is Sanctuary. I do want to say that a village created this song. Kim Creselius wrote on it. Sally Barris wrote it with me, and Sally Barris and Nick Forrester. And then producers Tom Wassinger, 3-time Grammy winner, and Sean Martin, a 5-time Grammy winner, were producers. And then we have executive producer Susie Batiste. So and then all the contributors to the project. And you know, if you feel like contributing, that would be so great. I'm raising the last funds to be able to finish the album at this point. So you can go to my website, RebeccaFolsom.com. So here we are. One voice rising in the darkness. One voice, no matter how small. One voice, each of us together. One voice together, a sanctuary for all. And one voice, one world, one choice, love, show us how. sanctuary, a safe refuge, a higher ground, one people living in one world, each act of love show us how. In one world we are brothers and sisters. One world, it's really rather small. One world, each of us together becomes the one voice of us all. And one voice, one world, one choice, love, show us how we can make a sanctuary, a safe refuge, a higher ground, one people living in one world, each act of love show us how. Every wall that we break down, every hand that reaches out, everywhere that love is found, we're building a new dream. Every garden that we tend, every burden that we end, every battle that we end, we're building a new dream. Every wall that we break down, every hand that reaches out, everywhere that love is found, we're building a new dream. Every garden that we tend, every burden that we mend, every battle that we end, we're building a new dream. We can make a sanctuary, a safe refuge, a higher ground, one people, one world, each act in love, show us how. Ooh, ooh. Oh, it's so nice to have you here and applauding. So often on live streams, it's like you're just sort of there and you're done, with the song. So, yay! Although I'm seeing some people in the chat, and that's wonderful.
You can see it.
Words, Tara, Trisha. Trisha said that the song cut off.
I know, and I'm wondering if it was because I was typing. I typed "She's so awesome," and then Trisha typed that. So I'm hoping that's what happened. But
okay, maybe they pop back in.
But people will be able to watch this, and yeah, go to her webpage. Definitely, I hope, if not, I'll put it on here. Go to her website, donate to the Sanctuary Project, because it's gonna be a big piece of healing that we need in our world right now.
Thank you. Really trying to get the message out big time, like songs of inspiration, love, and transformation at this point. So yeah, we're doing a whole thing. We just started it. And it's people coming in as angel sponsors. So people can come in as like guardian angels for $100 or earth angels for $50. We have tooth fairies for $25, and then we have supernovas for $5,000, that kind of thing. So I'd love for you to jump on and be part of it and all that good stuff. Oh, it came back. Good. So Trisha said it did come back.
Good.
It was, so fun to play for you.
What a treat to have Rebecca Folsom on my live stream singing her new song, Sanctuary. And wow, that was a beautiful song. Wow, that's incredible. I'm not sure what else there is to say after that. I mean, that's like, oh my gosh. I love you, Rebecca. I love your music, and I love the work that you do in the world. And
thank you. And same for you, Patti. I think we are like women. I just feel that there is such a force in women in this change, bringing in some of the more yin qualities as solutions, the collaboration and qualities. I'm just seeing many women that maybe even stood back for years, stepping forward and being leaders in change right now. And I see you as one of those women doing that. So, one drop, right? And all together we can move mountains. So.
Well, and my work with you has really helped because I've been doing teaching and training and therapy for a long time, but honestly, I'd rather be in my basement painting mandalas and not talk to anybody, because I'm kind of an introvert. So doing this is not easy for me. So I really appreciate how you've helped and are helping.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Because this is important. And it hit me when COVID happened. I said, okay, I got to get out of the basement. I got to speak to this part of me that I have gestated for so long that I hope my intention too, similar to Sanctuary, is for healing. I think we need a lot of healing right now. The world needs a lot of love, lots of love.
And we need the healing as individuals, our individual healing, and then our relationships, our one-on-one relationships and our communities, and then community to community, the healing between, communities that have been divided. And, just like shame, there's a real piece in this that's really important, and it's the facing piece. And so when, I talk about like coming home to what you're experiencing, there's the same thing of coming home to being in relationship with. When we're mad, or we feel that there's injustice, or we feel like someone else is mad and there's injustice, and scared, or on the other side, and being in the facing and the listening with each other, and really using our skill in that area, to me is just such a piece. When we're facing our shame, we're facing those places inside, to be with like, that's what's going on. Like that's either what happened, or that's what I made up about it, or wow, I've been in a victim blamey thing for years. For me to own that, I felt super ashamed. Like I've been playing the victim for 42 years in this dynamic. I teach people not to do that. So it was really, it's very humbling. And yet that's the work, is to keep coming back. Those places.
Keep coming back, because, I heard in my head this morning, my teacher, Jeremy Taylor, would say perfect is the opposite of finished, and, perfectionism is probably one of the big defenses against you. Nobody's perfect. And we all, we all make mistakes, and we all have our shadows. And
flaws are like some of the best parts, I mean, that's the amazing thing, especially with creative work. It's like, you're kind of perfect. It's a closed system. When a flaw comes up, it's like, whoa, what happens there? Like my self was showing, in some ways. And so there's a lot of, again, in the vocal freedom workshops, it's like so much of that is inviting. I actually woke up thinking about this with going to talk about shame, was in the workshops, and I want to tell people that there's a new series coming up. But in the workshops, the invitation to get up and be in the spotlight and on the microphone and do it so wrong, like everything that you have that is how you do. Oh, this would be terrible if I sang off key, or, if I messed up the words, or if I fell, or I, whatever, and getting people up there and letting them play and do it wrong. The liberation that happens is, and it's so fun. It's like the little kids in us just come alive.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I know. I all too well experience that. Like, what am I doing? That was awful. But then the love of everyone and the support to just keep going,
And exaggerate awful. Exactly. Like go into it. And in a way we transform it, with that. So.
Yeah. Talk about what you've got coming up with your course.
Oh yeah. So I do have another live stream. Again, if people go to the website, my website, it'll all be there. A live stream coming up, but I'm starting my new vocal freedom series, and anybody all over the world can do it because we're doing it online this time. And it's a shorter series. So it starts in October and goes until January, I think. So, and we meet once a month, and then we have a show at the end. So we'll have a Zoom show at the end. And it's so fun. And the people are so cool. The camaraderie, as it's like they're cool like you. And the camaraderie that happens, and the love and the friendships, and because we're being so authentic with each other in it, I think that it's very ripe for friendship, for deep friendship and transformation. Open your voice, get wings, your wings with your spirit.
Yeah.
So coming up in October, I think it's on Wednesday night, one Wednesday night a month, and it's all on RebeccaFolsom.com. You can check it out.
I'm looking at some of the comments. Leanne said she was singing with you. I know that's about her life.
Spirit. I miss harmonies.
Oh yeah, I know. And Leanne is one of your students, and now she's got her wings on. She's out there flying. She wrote a beautiful song for her husband, Chuck, who's also here. I love that song. You're so easy to love. So because of you, I've met these beautiful people, and I'm so grateful, and so grateful for your time today.
Thank you, Patti. Thank you for the platform and what you're doing and having me and all your beautiful invitations.
Oh, yeah. It was a pleasure. Do we leave anything out? Go to RebeccaFolsom.com.
I think we got it.
Yeah. And
work in progress.
Yeah. And sing, everybody, sing.
Yay! Express. What is it? Unenlightened blurting. Let yourself blurt. Get out of your box of cool. Say what you really want to say.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Cool.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye. Let me see if I can figure out how to stop. I think I got it. Stop the stream. There we go. I think it stopped. Hopefully.
I don't know. Someone type in the thing if we haven't stopped.